Okay, I'm so excited now to welcome Dr. Christopher Chen to the podcast. Chris is the University of California Cooperative Extension's Integrated Vineyard Systems Advisor for the North Coast region of California. Hi, Chris. Thanks for being on the podcast today.
Hi, thanks for having me. Yeah,
Yeah,
excited to talk about this.
you bet. Yeah. And Chris, we're actually just meeting for the first time now. And I saw you recently spoke and headlined at the Sustainable Ag Expo recently before the time of this recording. And that's an organization, the Vineyard team that I worked with, and I headlined there the year before. And I'm so sorry I couldn't get out to hear you speak in person, but I'm so happy you're here today. Before we jump into our topic on mothballing, not very fun topic, but I'm glad I have someone who can walk us through that. Can you tell the listener a little bit more about yourself and how you got interested in viticulture and in working with vineyards?
Yeah, I've been working around or in vineyards for about 10 years now, mostly as a researcher, but also just doing things in the vineyard. But yeah, I studied economics and agronomy as separate majors at UC Davis, stuck around for my master's in agronomy, just working in vineyards, and kept going with the PhD. Started to become a degree collector, kind of. So getting into wine grapes was kind of an accident for me. I know a lot of folks say, I grew up in a vineyard, and no, this was an accident for me. So I wanted to work with plants. I was studying plants, and my options were kind of limited for something that I could, make a good living out of as a researcher. Um, Golf course manager, forestry, viticulture. I ended up picking grapes, and I really grew to enjoy it. I still do it today as a career. So, I still have a lot of love for grapevines.
Excellent. Well, I'm so happy you stumbled upon it and decided to go this route because it sounds like you've been doing some great work. How long now have you been with the Extension Service?
It's been about 4 years now. I started just at the very beginning of 2022, and I'm loving it.
Excellent. And like you mentioned, as we were chatting before recording here, it's a combined position. I think it's interesting to mention Rhonda Smith in Sonoma County and Glenn McGordy, who was up in Lake County, Mendocino County. They've kind of combined those two positions after they retired. So you've got even more territory. So that's super exciting and super challenging, I'm sure, at the same time, right?
Yeah, it can be. The total acreage of wine grapes I cover is about roughly 18% of the total wine grapes planted in California, almost the same as Fresno by itself, but a huge geographic area with lots of valleys and twists and mini growers. I love it. It's something different every day. It's a really cool place to live, and there's just so many folks willing to try new things with their grapevines. It's very encouraging for a researcher like me.
Do growers at least prune or pre-prune or rough prune the vines in this scenario, or will they leave them completely unpruned, or is it a little of each in this first scenario?
So with this first type of mothballing, you wouldn't prune. You just leave the vines as they are, which can lead to problems further down the line, right? Especially bringing the grapevines back to production and trying to reestablish an architectural style for that grapevine that really matches your trellis or your production style. That's a problem, but you're also not paying to prune them in any way. And part of why the no pruning approach is used is because mechanization of vineyards is not really everywhere, right? You can't just go through with a hedger and pre-prune them or double prune them or half prune them, whatever you want to do. You have to get somebody out there to do it by hand, or maybe your vineyard's designed to do it by hand. So that's a huge labor cost that you're avoiding that way. There
Right.
are downsides to it, definitely, but it's something that we kind of will have to deal with this in this method.
If we're going to do something that's a little lighter version. I think this is the one that most growers hope if they have to cut costs, they get into this type 3 category.
Right. So the third type is what I would call minimal farming, right? So reduced intensity of your standard practices. And you would plan for some kind of harvest. So it's not really true mothballing, but like you said, I think a lot of folks want to try this before they commit entirely to mothballing because that is a risk, right? Like if we're talking about those embolisms, those can lead to permanent damage. And you don't want that on your grapevine. So minimal farming as an option is there. I included this as an option here because a lot of folks are trying it already. And the idea is just to eliminate as many extraneous costs as you can and continue to farm the crop to some capacity, right? It's really a take what you can get approach, I would say. It's low intensity farming. It has some appeal to it and you could get some crop out of it, but you're also not spending a load of money on something you don't need or trying something new. So fewer inputs when possible, right? If you're on an irrigation regime where you think you're watering your vines too much, maybe try changing your deficit irrigation regime to something a little less impactful with less water flow in there. Or maybe you don't need compost this year. Maybe instead you're just going for basic macronutrient fertilizers, something like that.
Yeah,
So there's
maybe instead of putting out the full spectrum, you put out just nitrogen just to make sure you get the shoot growth you need or something like that. Yeah.
right, exactly. Yeah, and not worrying about your micronutrient sprays in your fruit set because you're still planning to harvest, but maybe you're not trying to get 8 tons an acre. Maybe you're okay with 4, right? Or
Right.
Even that's a pretty good yield, but just
Right.
as an example.
Someone saying I'd love 4 tons an acre every year.
Yeah.
Someone's out there saying right now. Yeah. Okay.
So it would be fewer inputs, right? And with fewer inputs, ideally fewer management needs. So maybe you don't need to do shoot tucking. Maybe raking the wires enough. Maybe you don't need to do as much suckering, that kind of stuff. But also you plan to sell the crop if you can. Not like you're going to sell the crop and you're going to get this much. It's, I got this much. Can I sell it? I don't, it's a challenging way to farm because it's not as decisive as either farming entirely or mothballing entirely. It's kind of like as things come up, you take that opportunity or you don't. So I don't really recommend this as a long-term approach. I think it's really hard to do long-term, and the fluctuations in what you're going to get out of it are going to be pretty drastic. It's going to be maybe some years you're going to find a buyer, maybe some years you aren't. And then you ended up spending more money on doing this than you would have if you fully mothballed. So I think it's something to try, but it's not as easy to do or as predictable as some of the other approaches we can take.
For growers in this uncertain market, besides what you've already said? Anything else you want to add?
Yeah. First off, it's pretty tough to give any universal advice these days. So, be cautious with any universal advice that you might receive about grapevines. Just in California, the markets vary from county to county, and even more so if you look across the entire country. But, related to this topic in particular for like mothballing a vineyard, if you can't afford to keep your vineyard operational continuously for 3 to 5 years and you don't want to remove or replant vines, it's a good option, I think. It's new though. It's a novel practice. There's not a lot of information available on it or on the efficacy of the options that I've presented or anything else that might come up. So it's a risk. And whether it's mothballing or it's trying to redesign or future-proof your vineyard, you should weigh your options before jumping into anything and see, think about it, to your point, Fritz, in the term of the lifespan of the vineyard. So you have 20, 30 years for a commercial production vineyard that these vines are going to have to produce. What varieties do you want there? How do you want your trellis to be set up? Do you want livestock? So you probably shouldn't have 3-foot cordons off the ground. All these things should be thought of as not only like I'm going to do these things or I want to do these things, but do I want this option later on? I think that's really important, and also very important for the now when you're considering whether to mothball or remove a vineyard or just keep going along.